Imagine a scenario where you meet someone and at first glance, everything seems perfect. However, despite this, deep down, you can't shake the feeling that something is off. You try to ignore this strange feeling because you can't put it into words, as there are no apparent reasons for distrust. But a quiet voice inside you relentlessly insists otherwise. This feeling doesn't arise by chance. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the most prominent psychologists of the 20th century, asserted that true wisdom lies not in the obvious things, but in what we feel deep inside ourselves, yet too often suppress. This inner voice, according to Jung, is the most honest and direct channel of communication with the subconscious. It speaks not with words, but through intuition, emotions, and sensations, especially when something or someone doesn't align with your true self. How often do we seek answers externally? Asking friends and family for advice, studying articles, looking for signs to confirm our decisions. But how rarely do we truly listen to what our inner self is desperately trying to show us? Why is it so difficult for us to hear this inner voice? Jung explained this by saying that we live in a society that places rational thinking above all else. From childhood, we are taught to trust only what can be proven, seen, or touched. But the deepest and truest part of you doesn't need tangible evidence to understand when something or someone is not right for your life. And here's the question. Are you ready to trust this inner knowledge to make your life more harmonious and happy? When encountering a person whose essence dissonates with yours, the inner voice sends subtle but unmistakable signs: unceasing anxiety, inexplicable stiffness, a depressing feeling of inner emptiness, or a vague premonition of trouble. Often these signals go unnoticed because the person meets someone else's expectations, or out of fear of admitting that the connection, despite all efforts, is not fulfilling. Carl Jung argued that such inner anxiety is not just an annoying nuisance, but a persistent call to action. Your true self is desperately signaling incompatibility. By ignoring this inner voice, you gradually distance yourself from your authentic essence, risking getting lost in a labyrinth of others' perceptions and social norms. The outcome is almost always predictable: inner emptiness, bitter disappointment, and a feeling of alienation from your own life. But what happens when you find the courage to listen to this inner voice? Something incredibly important happens. You acknowledge your own feelings, saying to yourself, "I hear you, I trust you, I deserve better." This internal affirmation not only changes your self-perception, but also transforms the nature of the relationships you attract into your life. Following your inner compass requires considerable courage, because it often points to paths that seem unsafe or beyond the familiar. However, it is on these uncharted roads that genuine personal growth occurs. When you begin to live in harmony with your inner self, you attract people who don't try to remake you, but appreciate your uniqueness. Therefore, if today you are tormented by doubts about how well a particular person suits you, pay attention to the quiet inner voice that you may have been silencing too often. This voice is your best advisor because your subconscious has long known the answer. All that is needed is to muster the courage to listen to it. Life doesn't make mistakes by leading you away from what doesn't suit you. It only seeks to bring you closer to who you really are. Surely each of us has encountered a situation where relationships that seem exemplary from the outside actually exhaust us and leave a feeling of gaping emptiness. This doesn't happen by chance. As Carl Gustav Jung insightfully noted, such a state is nothing more than a message from our soul, a signal of dissonance, an attempt to draw our attention to a deep truth that we may be diligently suppressing. It's not about flaws in our personality or the partner's personality. Rather, our subconscious unerringly recognizes the discrepancy between the person and our true essence, and this is what our inner voice signals to us. Surely you have encountered something similar. A person possesses all the qualities you are looking for: attractive, witty, intelligent, shares your interests, but your heart remains restless. It seems as if something vitally important is missing, although it is impossible to explain it rationally. Jung reminds us that this intuition is not an accident and not just an emotional impulse. It is an inner call, striving to protect us and guide us to more sincere and harmonious connections. The problem arises when we neglect this inner voice, trying to justify the discomfort with false hopes that everything will get better with time, or convincing ourselves that we are being overly sensitive. Jung warned, "The longer we ignore these internal signals, the deeper the emotional wounds we carry with us become." By clinging to a connection that does not benefit us, we gradually lose pieces of our own identity. We adapt to the expectations of our partner, imperceptibly beginning to betray our own principles and desires. This self-betrayal has far-reaching consequences. At first, we may hardly feel the changes, but over time we notice that something important within us is fading away. Our natural joy, zest for life, and even our most cherished dreams suffer as a result. Carl Jung said, "Every time we sacrifice our essence in the name of a relationship, we take a step away from our inner integrity." The loss of self occurs gradually, like a shadow creeping unnoticed, and sometimes the realization of the scale of the loss comes too late. However, it is precisely in this that the starting point lies. An inner yearning, a barely perceptible feeling of emptiness or incongruity. This is what becomes the first signal on the path to emotional freedom. When you realize that you are trying to forcefully hold on to something that is slipping away, unnaturally striving to fit into someone else's mold, the process of regaining lost inner strength begins. No matter how painful it may be to part with someone with whom you once shared bright hopes, it is even more unbearable to remain in a relationship where there is no place for your true essence. As Jung asserted, life relentlessly strives for harmony. If someone is not meant for you, it will inevitably manifest itself in constant friction, discomfort, and internal rejection. And this resistance, however painful it may be, carries a deep meaning. It indicates that you have strayed from the right path, neglecting your true nature and deep needs. True intimacy, genuine relationships that truly suit you, will never require you to give up yourself. They promote growth and development without distorting your personality. By clinging to what is alien to you, we often act out of fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of the unknown, or fear of losing something that seems valuable. But it is precisely in these moments of uncertainty, according to Jung, that the greatest opportunity for transformation and spiritual growth opens up. By daring to let go of what no longer serves you, listening to the voice of your inner self, you reclaim your power, opening the door to relationships and experiences that are truly meant for you. Remember that feeling of liberation when you finally let go of a person or situation in your life that was not right for you. This state of inner balance, when you stop going against your own nature, was called the return to the true self by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. The inner harmony that arises when you stop resisting the flow of life serves as a sure sign that the decision you have made is right. In such moments, you realize that life was not trying to punish you, but only gently guiding you towards your true destiny, towards those relationships that reflect your true essence. Perhaps you are also familiar with the opposite feeling, a sense of complete acceptance and ease in certain connections, where you can be yourself without pretending, being in harmony with yourself and another person. It is these kinds of relationships that Jung considered to be truly aligned with your essence. In them, you do not have to make an effort to earn belonging. There is no need to change your fundamental character traits, and after communicating, you do not feel drained. On the contrary, such connections fill you with energy, inspire personal growth, and motivate you to improve yourself. In them, everything happens naturally, without coercion. The difference between these two types of relationships may seem insignificant at first glance, but it is of great importance for your emotional and mental health. True, genuine relationships heal the soul, providing space for free self-expression, where there is no room for fear of being rejected or judged. At the same time, in relationships that are not meant for you, you constantly feel the need to hide a part of your truth. And as Jung asserted, your subconscious will persistently send you warning signals until you are ready to listen to your inner voice. At times, by closing our eyes to alarming signals and keeping people in our lives who are alien to our souls, we subconsciously run away from deeper problems, from the fear of loneliness or the feeling of our own inferiority. The great psychologist Carl Jung asserted that our relationships are a mirror reflecting our inner world. Often, we attract exactly what scares us the most, and this is not a coincidence, but a necessity, to face our fears in order to gain freedom. It is possible that someone who seems wrong for you is actually sent to point out areas that need development. Self-love, the ability to set healthy boundaries, or the ability to say no without remorse. Ask yourself, what relationships in your life make you feel the need to change, adapt, or compromise your principles? Remember the last time you ignored your inner voice, even though you felt uncomfortable from the start. If you aspire to a fulfilling life filled with genuine and healthy connections, you need to learn to trust your intuition, the deep wisdom that Jung called the inner compass. Often we convince ourselves that everything will be fine if we just put in more effort, show more love, and make greater sacrifices. We hope to change another person or believe that the relationship will eventually come into harmony. However, Jung noted an important pattern. The more you try to hold on to a connection that is not meant to be, the deeper the inner void becomes, and this void cannot be filled with effort, self-sacrifice, or hope. It will only disappear when you realize that your soul has long sent you a signal. You are not where you are supposed to be. Surely, everyone is familiar with that poignant feeling when a relationship with someone turns into a relentless struggle to maintain its viability. Every action requires immense effort. Conversations seem strained and unnatural, and you, like a lawyer, find excuses for the other person's actions, which in other circumstances would have caused your unconditional rejection. And to all this is added an inexplicable, oppressive inner anxiety. The great psychologist Carl Jung taught us that such persistent emotional states are not just fleeting whims, but deep signals indicating that your life is diverging from your true self. Think back. Have you ever felt completely emotionally drained after communicating with a certain person, as if they had sucked all the life force out of you? Jung was convinced that such meetings, leaving behind only exhaustion, are a clear sign of disharmony in the relationship. Here, it is important not to blame the other person, but to honestly admit what part of your own personality comes to the fore as a result of this interaction. Perhaps you are neglecting your personal boundaries, allowing, albeit unconsciously, this person to stir up old emotional wounds that your subconscious is eager to heal. However, instead of listening to these feelings, we often succumb to stereotypical thoughts. We've been together for so long, there are no perfect people, or even, maybe the problem is me. And while there is some truth in these statements, the point is not to seek perfection, but to strive for resonance, inner harmony, and peace of mind. If a person is really right for you, you will not have a constant feeling of needing to demean yourself or hide important aspects of your personality just to maintain a semblance of well-being. According to the eminent psychologist Carl Jung, true harmony is not a flawless facade, but a deep inner consistency. In relationships with a person destined for you, disagreements and life difficulties are inevitable, but at the same time, your life energy does not run out. On the contrary, after overcoming conflicts, you feel a surge of strength and vitality. This is because there is someone next to you who values your true essence, the relationship is built on mutual respect and promotes the spiritual growth of both partners. Healthy relationships, according to Jung, grow not out of fear of loneliness or rejection, but out of conscious choice, mutual acceptance, and deep understanding. With the person destined for you, you do not need to make excessive efforts, since there is an intuitive and strong connection between you. In such relationships, there is no need to sacrifice your inner world in order to maintain the connection. On the contrary, over time, you feel more and more authentic and whole. However, what happens if you refuse to acknowledge the obvious and stubbornly cling to someone who is not right for you? In this case, you doom yourself to an endless cycle of disappointment. There is a feeling that you are giving more than you are getting in return, that you constantly have to convince your partner of your value and fight for their attention. Such behavior is the direct opposite of self-love. By staying in such a connection, you subconsciously broadcast a destructive message to yourself. My well-being does not matter. The main thing is to maintain this illusion. Jung warned against such self-deception, as it can lead to a loss of one's own identity and undermine self-esteem. However, if you do decide to listen to this inner tuning fork, a colossal transformation awaits you. Once you realize that a certain person is no longer a fellow traveler on your life's journey, and despite the initial heartache, you let them go, you will gradually feel a surge of energy, motivation, joy, and meaning in life. These feelings will once again take center stage in your life, attracting people and events that are more in line with your true desires and what you deserve. But such transformations become possible only with the courage to trust your inner truth. Often we neglect these signals, fearing to make a mistake, remain alone, or due to a lack of confidence in our own intuition. However, as Carl Jung argued, intuition is not a fleeting feeling, but a powerful tool of inner wisdom. It originates in the deepest layers of our being, in the collective unconscious, which unerringly determines what contributes to our personal and spiritual growth. It is important to remember that not everyone who enters our lives is meant to stay in it forever. Some people appear in our lives with a specific mission: to teach a lesson, help us remember our true selves, or point out internal patterns that need healing. And once this mission is accomplished, the growing inner anxiety and tension signal the end of the journey together. Staying in such relationships longer than necessary inevitably leads to mental and emotional suffering. Consider what horizons will open up for you if you free yourself from connections that have lost their relevance. By breaking off relationships that have exhausted themselves, you are not just putting an end to something, but clearing the ground for new acquaintances, vivid impressions, and genuine love. Instead of clinging to the past, open your heart to the coming changes. Listen to your inner voice, let it guide you, and you will see how your life is transformed. By accepting the truth that intuition has long been trying to convey to you, you will gain inner strength capable of attracting relationships that reflect your true essence. Any relationship should contribute to self-discovery and personal growth. If you feel that your partner is holding you back, restricting your freedom, or forcing you to give up important aspects of your personality, this is a signal that cannot be ignored. Your subconscious always knows what is best for you and is just waiting for the moment when you muster the courage to listen to its voice. Ask yourself, what truth are you running from in your current relationship? What unpleasant truths are you refusing to acknowledge? Your soul has known the answer for a long time. It is just waiting for you to be ready to hear it and act in accordance with it, in order to find harmony and live the life you deserve. It is amazing how often we find ourselves trapped in relationships, naively believing that everything will work out on its own, while we are haunted by a subtle but persistent mental pain, a slight discomfort signaling that this connection is alien to us. As Jung keenly noted, our unconscious does not stop trying to reach us, and if relationships do not meet our true needs, it uses many channels to attract our attention, be it bizarre dreams, inexplicable premonitions, a depressing inner anxiety, or even physical ailments and minor illnesses. All these signals pursue one goal: to awaken us, to make us turn our gaze to what we stubbornly suppress, to what has long been time to let go. Perhaps each of us has experienced something similar. Looking back on past relationships, we realize that from the very beginning we felt a vague sense of unease, but still remained in these relationships out of fear of loneliness or under pressure from public opinion. Over time, such relationships turn into an unbearable burden until finally the realization comes that we were desperately fighting for something that our soul never truly desired. Jung tirelessly emphasized that ignoring these inner messages is tantamount to denying a significant part of oneself, and this always entails serious consequences for our emotional and mental health. There is a price to pay for such denial, because every time we suppress the truth within ourselves, we lose a piece of our true essence, gradually turning into a pathetic shadow of our true selves. We stop radiating light, stop growing, and instead begin to obsessively adapt to another person in the vain hope. The desire for recognition and validation is what drives many of us. However, it often happens that this validation never comes, leaving us in a state of dissatisfaction. The reason lies in the fact that the connection we place our hopes on turns out to be shallow and insincere. We fall into a vicious circle where no amount of external approval can fill the inner void. We forget that true recognition is not born externally, but grows from within, from the depths of our own self. As Carl Jung insightfully noted, many relationships, instead of enriching us, turn into emotional shackles. They hold us captive in codependency or emotional dependence, not strengthening our spirit, but gradually depleting our vital forces. When a person does not meet our true needs, the subconscious signals this not only with a feeling of emotional discomfort, but also with repetitive behavioral patterns that lead to disappointment time and time again. Perhaps you have noticed how you repeatedly find yourself in similar relationships with different people, but with the same predictable dynamics. According to Jung, this happens because unresolved internal conflicts are projected into the external world, manifesting in our relationships. Every person who causes us familiar pain becomes a kind of signpost, signaling that we have an important lesson to learn about ourselves. Awareness of this dynamic is the first step towards liberation. It is necessary to ask ourselves questions. What parts of myself have I sacrificed to maintain these relationships? What aspects of my authenticity have I suppressed in order to adapt or please another person? Jung argued that the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to stop searching for external validation and direct our energy towards restoring our inner identity. It is necessary to reconnect with our true essence, with that pure and undistorted self that resides deep within each of us. Realizing that paths diverge with a certain person is not a manifestation of selfishness at all, but rather an act filled with the deepest courage and respect for oneself. Accepting this difficult truth marks the beginning of a period of genuine and profound change in life. This process can be compared to freeing oneself from a heavy burden, when there is no longer any need to struggle against the current or try on someone else's role. It is important to realize that no one in the world is worth sacrificing your inner balance and uniqueness for. As Carl Gustav Jung asserted, living in harmony with one's true nature not only enriches our existence, but also attracts healthy and harmonious relationships into our lives with people next to whom we grow, learn, and can remain ourselves. By finding the strength to end unsuitable relationships, we open the doors to the true ability to love and be loved. Our intuition, that inner voice that we may have ignored for so long, is actually a priceless gift from the subconscious. Its purpose is to protect us and guide us to a better future. This signal does not disappear just because we refuse to hear it. On the contrary, it becomes more and more insistent until we are ready to pay attention to it. That is why Jung tirelessly emphasized the importance of maintaining a connection with oneself, because only by learning to listen to our intuition can we unmistakably determine what is beneficial for us and what is harmful. By trusting ourselves, we cease to be puppets in the hands of circumstances and take control of our emotional lives. We become stronger from within because we no longer need external approval to feel our own worth and completeness. Awareness of one's own value opens the doors to genuine relationships where there is no need to sacrifice one's individuality. It is from this source of self-respect that the ability to attract connections that not only respect but also harmoniously complement your uniqueness is born. And when this understanding is firmly rooted in the mind, it becomes obvious that the inner voice always pointed to incompatibility with certain people. This voice, full of love and care, tirelessly guided, but only the willingness to listen to it opens the way to the truth. The moment when intuition becomes the main advisor marks the beginning of actively managing one's own destiny. As Jung argued, authentic life lies not in striving to conform to other people's ideals, but in a deep immersion in one's inner world and following one's feelings, and not just rational thinking. By letting go of those who do not resonate with your essence, you declare to the universe that you deserve something more. And that is when relationships that can take you to a new level begin to be attracted into your life. There is no longer any need to waste energy on maintaining connections that deplete the inner world, because there comes an awareness that true love does not require renunciation of oneself and rejection of valuable aspects of personality. Life is too short to waste it on adapting to those who were never meant for your destiny. The main task is to respect and love yourself, to build relationships that are in tune with your soul. Only then can you experience true satisfaction, a deep emotional connection, and honest growth. So, I urge you now to face the truth and analyze your deep feelings. What signs from your inner self are you stubbornly refusing to acknowledge? Perhaps you are clinging to connections that have long run their course and bring you nothing but disappointment, simply out of fear of being alone. It is time to be brave and listen to that quiet but persistent voice within your soul. Make a firm decision today to start living the life that truly aligns with your authentic needs and desires. Believe me, the universe will surely reward you for this courage, filling your life with harmonious relationships with people who share your spirit and values.